What if everything they told you was too much? Is actually proof of something extraordinary inside you? Stay with me because by the end of this video, you'll see exactly why Carl Jung believed the very traits society shames you for might be the blueprint for your greatest purpose. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what if the real you doesn't fit into the world's narrow expectations? What if your intensity, your sensitivity, your refusal to settle for shallow answers aren't flaws at all, but signs of a rare psychological design? If you've ever felt like an outsider, if you've been labeled too deep, too complicated, that's not coincidence. According to Jung's pioneering work on personality, some people operate from what he called a differentiated consciousness, a level of psychological development that most never reach. But here's the twist, and I'll explain it in just a moment. These rare individuals often believe something is wrong with them, when in truth, they're functioning with a rare form of inner intelligence. Today, we'll uncover 8 powerful signs you may possess this rare psychological type. If even a few of these feel familiar, it could change how you see yourself forever. Let's begin. Sign 1. You feel emotions with overwhelming depth. Carl Jung discovered that emotional intensity isn't a flaw. It's a form of complex psychological experience. He called it affect-toned complexes. This means you don't just feel, you absorb, process, and internalize emotions on a deeper level. You feel tension others ignore. You notice subtle inconsistencies, a smile that doesn't match the eyes. But here's what most get wrong. This isn't instability, it's emotional intelligence. Society often tries to suppress this depth. It tells you to stop being too sensitive. But Jung found that suppressing this emotional complexity can lead to internal conflict, what he called psychological splitting. You end up pretending to be someone else, exhausting yourself in the process. But Jung also discovered a way to transform this burden into strength. I'll reveal that in Sign 6. Sign 2. You question everything, constantly. While most people accept the world as it is, you dig deeper. Jung called this active thinking, the refusal to live unconsciously. You don't just wonder what's happening, you ask why. Why do people stay in toxic relationships? Why do we accept systems that hurt us? Why do we avoid uncomfortable truths? You see through appearances and push toward meaning. This kind of truth-seeking, Jung noted, is part of the transcendent function, the psychological process that bridges where we are with what's possible. But your questions can make others uncomfortable. They challenge the illusions people rely on. This is why you might be called negative or cynical, when in fact you're courageously honest. Jung described people like you as having prophetic consciousness, an awareness of what's coming before others can see it. And that awareness carries a responsibility we'll talk about in Sign 8. Sign 3. Your independence is hard-earned and essential. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." You didn't gain independence for fun, you did it to survive. According to Jung, those with rare personality structures often experience individuation, becoming a whole self, earlier than most, and usually through hardship. Your independence isn't a defense, it's a transformation, but society often tries to pathologize it. You've learned the hard way that depending on others for identity or validation is a trap. You built yourself, often alone, and you've become whole without waiting for someone else to complete you. This doesn't mean you don't want love. It means you don't need saving. You want a partner, not a rescuer. But your independence can attract 2 types of people, those who are drawn to your strength and those who want to possess it. Jung found a pattern here, one that explains why your relationships either deepen profoundly or collapse under the pressure of your authenticity. I'll explain how to navigate that in Sign 7. Sign 4. Your intuition feels like a sixth sense. Jung was one of the first psychologists to take intuition seriously. He described it as perception via the unconscious, a way of knowing that operates below awareness, but with incredible accuracy. You sense things others miss. You pick up subtle energy shifts. You hear the emotions behind words. This is what Jung called active imagination, the mind's ability to go beyond what's obvious. You're like an emotional scanner, always reading between the lines. But this gift comes with a cost, burnout. Jung found that intuitive types often become unconscious therapists, taking on everyone's emotions and losing themselves in the process. The danger is real. You become so attuned to others, you forget to check in with yourself. But there's a way to transform this gift into a superpower through what Jung called psychological boundaries. I'll show you that strategy in a moment. Sign 5. You crave meaning more than social approval. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But Jung warned most people never get there because they're too afraid to stand alone. You're different. You need depth. You crave authenticity. You can't fake interest in things that lack substance. You might have tried to follow the rules, fit in, say the right things, but your psyche knows the truth, and it won't stay silent. Living inauthentically, Jung discovered, creates neurotic symptoms, anxiety, depression, emptiness. But your longing for meaning makes you a catalyst for evolution. Your refusal to settle forces others to confront their own inauthenticity. You ask questions others avoid. You hold values others fear to live by. And that makes you a mirror, and sometimes a trigger, for the people around you. But here's what Jung said that most forget. Your purpose isn't just personal. It's bigger than you. I'll reveal how in Sign 8. Sign 6. You've outgrown people and places that once felt like home. Jung said, the greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents. But what happens when you decide to live your own? Personal growth often means letting go of relationships that no longer align with your truth. This can feel like grief, but Jung called it psychological death and rebirth. As you grow, you change. You shed old versions of yourself, and the people who loved those old versions may not recognize you anymore. You're not trying to be difficult. You're becoming authentic, and that makes others uncomfortable. Jung described the loneliness that follows as the dark night of the soul, a spiritual initiation into your deeper self. But he also found that when you honor your truth, you begin attracting people who resonate with your new frequency. It's not about isolation. It's about making space for connection that's actually real. Sign 7. You offer something rare, true presence. Jung said, when two personalities meet, if there is any reaction, both are transformed. But some people, like you, create transformation just by being fully present. You listen beyond the words. You witness, not just observe. You hold space instead of trying to fix. Jung identified this gift as psychological holding, the ability to be a container for truth, pain, and complexity. But there's a downside. You may give this gift too freely. You become everyone's safe space, everyone's confidant, everyone's rock, and in the process, you become invisible. This is what Jung called helper syndrome, the compulsion to care without receiving care. The solution isn't to close your heart, it's to build discernment. You must learn to recognize who truly earns your presence. And that's the emotional skill I'll explain in this final sign. Sign 8. You feel called to something greater, even if you can't name it yet. Jung wrote, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. If you've ever felt a mysterious purpose tugging at your soul, one that's hard to explain, you're not imagining it. Jung called this the archetypal calling, a deep psychic drive to contribute something meaningful to the world. You don't want recognition. You want alignment. You want to live in a way that feels like truth. Ignore this. And Jung warned, your psyche will protest through anxiety, depression, or a sense of emptiness, because your purpose isn't about ego, it's about evolution. Jung believed that people like you are bridges between the unconscious and the conscious. You help move humanity forward. Your depth, your questions, your refusal to accept surface-level living, they're all part of that mission. But here's the most important lesson. This doesn't make you superior. It makes you responsible. Responsible for living authentically, for staying grounded in truth, for carrying the torch of deeper awareness. Jung called you a differentiated individual, someone whose inner world is developed enough to sense, feel, and see what others overlook. If even half these signs resonated with you, you're not too much. You're part of the shift towards something greater. Yes, it's lonely at times. Yes, you're misunderstood. But Jung believed people like you are essential for humanity's evolution. Your sensitivity is strength. Your depth is wisdom. Your resistance to conformity is courage. And the moment you stop apologizing for it, you begin to embody the rare soul you were always meant to be. Drop a comment and share which sign hit home the most. Subscribe, because we're just getting started. And remember, you're not too much. The world is just too small, but people like you are the reason it's growing.